Canada isn't just a country, it's silence. You stand at the foot of the Rockies and the air smells like ice, pine, and something ancient. The wind carries sounds that don't really exist, just rustles, breath, a quiet presence. Everything around you seems to wait for you to stop talking, to stop rushing, to stop explaining. Here, no one needs words. They feel instead. Light filters through the trees, slides across the rocks, and melts into the lakes. A bear's shadow moves across the hillside, not as a threat, but as a quiet reminder that you're a guest here. The wind brushes the tops of the firs. The lakes remain silent, as if they hold secrets you don't need to understand. What matters is simply being here, listening, not disturbing anything. In Quebec, the stones whisper in French. In Nunavut, children laugh in the snow. In British Columbia, the mountains stare at the ocean without blinking. Everything is alive. Everything is exactly where it belongs. Even you, if you know how to slow down. Welcome to a place that promises nothing, yet gives you everything. A place you can't conquer, only accept. A place that breathes. Canada. Interesting facts. Canada is the second largest country in the world, but when it comes to population, it's nowhere near the top. Fewer people live here than in the state of California. Imagine that, a country with millions of square kilometers of forests, lakes, and tundra, and it feels like you're the only one around. Or more accurately, like everyone here has their own private continent. And the lakes? There are over 2 million of them. That's nearly 60% of all the freshwater on Earth. 6 out of every 10 drops you see in lakes around the world. They're here in Canada. There are some true anomalies too, like Hudson Bay, where gravity is actually weaker than normal. The Earth literally pulls less in that spot. Scientists explain it with the structure of the Earth's crust, but locals joke, that's why we're so easygoing. And then there's the Northern Post Office. Yes, a real one. It runs all year round, accepts letters for Santa, and even writes back. With a stamp, a signature, everything done properly. Canada Post officially helps Santa Claus because, as they say, kindness should come with an envelope. Calmcation, the new way to travel. In 2025, Canada is leading the way in slow travel. It's not about checking off landmarks or racing through a list of sites. It's a different kind of vacation. More like relearning how to live. You wake up in a wooden cabin and open the window to see a morning river in British Columbia. A kayak waits at the shore. The water is warm, smooth like glass. You're not paddling toward a destination. You're paddling for the sake of movement itself. At night, there's no signal, just the silence of the forest, the crackle of firewood, and stars you haven't seen in years. And in the morning, breakfast by the lake, coffee, northern skies, and nowhere to rush. It's not a route, it's a rhythm, a new rhythm of life, journeys with Indigenous peoples. Indigenous-led tours in Canada aren't performances. They're a return to meaning. You're not being entertained, you're being welcomed. You walk through Haida land, live in a village, take part in a ceremony. You're not a spectator, you're a witness. Every word, every gesture is real. No costumes, no set pieces. It's not a tour. It's an encounter with something that was here long before borders and flags, and still lives on, in stories, in firelight, in patterns, in people's voices. Train travel as a way to slow down. The Canadian isn't just a train, it's a way of being. It runs from Toronto to Vancouver over 4 days and 4 nights, 4,466 kilometers through prairies, forests, and the Rocky Mountains. There's no Wi-Fi, but there's a panoramic car, a white tablecloth on your dining table, and slow, thoughtful conversations with fellow passengers. Nothing happens fast here, and at some point, you stop rushing too, as if you're finally catching up with your real self. Whale watching, quietly and gently. In 2025, quiet eco-tours are gaining popularity in Canada. No motors, no wakes, no chasing. Kayaks, sailboats, sometimes just swimming, all to avoid disturbing the moment. You glide into the Saguenay Fjord and suddenly hear it. A breath. A beluga surfaces for just a few seconds. The silence is complete. No one shouts, no one scrambles for a shot. This isn't a show, it's an encounter. direct, respectful, like a handshake. National parks and sleeping under the stars. Half of Canada's national parks are dark sky zones. No streetlights, no roads, no electricity, just sky. Jasper is considered one of the best stargazing spots in the world. Here they host nighttime talks beneath the Milky Way, wrap you in blankets and pour hot tea. You lie in your sleeping bag, and above you, the universe. No exaggeration. It's not just camping. It's a return to the sky, to yourself. Fog is a feeling. The Atlantic coast. Atlantic Canada is different. Here, no one waits for sunshine. People embrace the fog. It wraps around the morning harbor like it's giving you time to wake up. Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, fishing villages, old piers, soft rain on wood, the scent of salt in the air. Somewhere a fiddle plays. Someone's mending nets. Nothing much happens, and that's the beauty of it. You stare into the gray distance, and suddenly you start to see more clearly, because this fog doesn't hide. It reveals, just in a different way. Myths and reality. Myth: Canada is too big to take in. Reality: the farther you go, the closer you get to yourself. Yes, Canada is massive, but that's the point. The space clears your mind. As the train rolls on for hours, your thoughts begin to quiet. And in that silence, something surfaces. Not about your route, but about you. You climb the mountains not for the height, but because the view from above shifts your perspective. Sometimes inward, too. Canada doesn't ask you to see everything. It asks only one thing: be here. Don't rush. Just be. Myth: you have to visit Toronto and Vancouver. Reality: the most important part is in between. In a tiny fishing village in Nova Scotia, the air smells like bread and salt. Not the sea kind, the human kind. In the hills of rural Quebec, elders play pétanque while kids chase squirrels like it's a sport. On the islands of Haida Gwaii, you walk through forests where trees speak through the wind, and you realize there are no attractions here because everything is one, even the pause between steps. Not everything that matters is marked on a map. Sometimes it's in the space between the dots. Myth: Canada is too expensive and out of reach. Reality: what matters most doesn't cost much. It's just real. You buy fresh bread at a roadside bakery, eat breakfast in a garden that smells of mint and earth, and suddenly it hits you. This is it. No luxury, no filters, no Wi-Fi. A tent in the woods costs less than a hotel room, but a night by the lake, that stays with you. The fire crackles, your hands warm around a mug. Time slows down. In Canada, value isn't measured in money. It's in what stays with you after the train pulls away, the snow melts, and the trip is over. Myth: Canada means cold and survival. Reality: winter isn't the enemy, it's a celebration. In Montreal, people don't hide from winter. They throw carnivals. There's hot chocolate on the streets, light installations, open-air skating rinks. People greet the snow like kids. In Quebec City, they light up the night, carve ice sculptures, and gather around torches for warmth. In northern Inuit villages, winter is storytelling season. Families gather, laughter fills the room, and the scent of fresh fish and traditional stew fills the air. Here, no one fights the cold. They know how to live in it. Warmth doesn't come from heaters, it comes from people, and you feel it right away. Rules and habits. Travel light. In Canada, people learn to let go, not just of fixed plans, but of things. Baggage isn't only what's in your backpack. It's also the noise in your head and all the unnecessary shoulds. By 2025, more and more travelers are choosing door-to-door services where your backpack travels separately and you just walk, breathe, look around. Light doesn't mean cheap, it means free. Canada doesn't like heaviness, not in your hands, not in your thoughts. Trash is personal. In Canadian parks, you'll find few trash bins, but you will be handed a bag when you enter, and you'll take everything with you when you leave. Even a banana peel, even crumbs. It's not about strict rules, it's about respect. Trash isn't thrown away, it's taken away, because nature here isn't a picnic spot. It's a living space where you're a guest, and a guest should leave as if they were never there. Respect the quiet and the pace. Small towns move at their own rhythm. No rush, no urgency. A shop might close at 6. A bus might leave early. Not to be difficult, but because time is valued here. Yours and theirs. In lakeside cabins, silence begins at sunset. No music, no loud voices. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a way of saying thank you. And punctuality? It's not about being strict. It's about being respectful. If you say 5 o'clock, be there at 5. It matters. Fire is a matter of trust. The climate is changing. Wildfires are more frequent. So no campfires wherever you like. Only in designated areas. If there's a fire ban, it's not a suggestion. It's a rule. Even a single spark can do harm. Here, fire is treated like life, with trust and care. Because Canada knows how to keep you warm, but only if you're careful too. Be ready for change. In Canada, the weather doesn't ask for permission. Even in summer, snow can fall in the Rockies. Mornings bring sun, afternoons fog, evenings rain. A thermos, a raincoat, a warm layer. They're not just in case. They're about respect. For yourself, for nature. She doesn't adapt to you, but she always gives a sign if you're willing to listen. Speak gently. Listen closely. Canadians are polite, not out of habit, but from the heart. They don't push with questions. They don't intrude. How are you? Isn't small talk. It's an invitation. A pause isn't awkward. It's space for respect. Conversations begin with tone and end with coffee, if trust is earned. Because here, the most important thing isn't speaking. It's listening. Common tourist mistakes. Trying to see it all. Canada isn't a checklist country. It's not about ticking off a top 10. It's not about how much you see. It's about how deeply you experience it. You can visit 100 places and understand none of them. Or you can stay by one trail, one lake, and feel everything fall into place. Leave a day with no plan, no destination. Just be, look, listen, breathe. In Canada, that counts as a plan. Taking a photo instead of taking it in. Totem poles, ceremonies, wild animals. They're not props. They're real encounters. Not for your camera, but for your memory. Sometimes the best shot is the one you didn't take because you stayed in the moment. Here, they value not those who capture, but those who notice. Underestimating distances. On the map, everything looks close. In reality, the space between points can be a full day. Or 2. Canada is vast. It doesn't hurry, and neither should you. Plan a day for the road, an evening for silence. And then you realize, travel time isn't wasted time. It is the journey, expecting everyone to speak English. In Quebec, it's French. In small villages, local dialects. In indigenous communities, their own languages, their own rhythm of speech. But here, language isn't what matters most. Attitude is. A smile, a calm tone, a simple gesture. They work everywhere. Sometimes silence is the warmest kind of conversation, especially here. Going off trail, it might seem harmless. One step to the side, just for the view. But that one step can crush moss, disturb a bird's nest, or scare off a moose. In Canada, trails aren't restrictions. They're protection for nature and for us. Planning with no buffer. The weather can change. A ferry might not show up. A road might close. A shop might shut early. And that's not a problem. It's part of the experience. Canada is alive. Your schedule should be too. The best things rarely happen when everything goes to plan. They happen when you let go. Banff National Park. You wake up before dawn and walk to Lake Louise in the dark. The water is still, like glass. The first line of light touches the mountains. Somewhere in the distance, a moose calls. Deep, low, timeless. Everything around you pauses. Not for a photo, not for a checklist, but so you can feel it. This is forever. The landscape doesn't explain itself. It just looks back at you, directly, without anything extra. Kayaking in British Columbia. You glide through cold water. Your paddle barely makes a sound. The world feels asleep. And suddenly, a splash. An orca breaks the surface. Close. Very close. You lock eyes for a second, unmoving. This isn't a show, it's trust. There are no tickets here, only invitations. If you know how to belong, Haida Gwaii Islands. No roads lead here, only ferries and small planes. But it feels like time doesn't arrive either. The forests smell of rain and bark. People smile slowly, look directly at you, speak little. You're not a tourist, you're a guest, and you feel it in every glance. Every tree here remembers more than any guidebook, and if you pause long enough, you'll start to feel it too. Nova Scotia. Cape Breton is the edge of the world. Cliffs, ocean, a road disappearing into the horizon. Somewhere nearby, music plays. Celtic, alive like breath. The morning smells of salt. The day hums with waves. The evening, accordion by the fire, and stories told not with words but eyes. Each wave here is a line of poetry. You just have to read it. Yukon and the Northern Lights. At first it's just darkness. Then the sky begins to move. Light dances, like someone's painting above you. Green, purple, white, all at once. You stand still, holding your breath. It's not wow. It's now I get it. You're not alone. You're part of something vast. The Northern Lights don't just light up the sky. They show you what's been inside all along. Montreal, brick streets, coffee not in cafes but on front steps. Someone singing around the corner. Someone else selling books from a wooden crate. Montreal speaks three languages at once, French, English, and the one where nothing needs explaining. You walk and dissolve into it. This isn't a big city, it's a rhythm. If you're ready to listen, Quebec City. The old town sits on a cliff like a stage frozen in time. Cobblestones, curtain-lined windows, lamplight that glows warm, almost theatrical. It smells like bread and stone. People walk slowly. You don't need to introduce yourself. The city speaks first. It's not Europe. It's not pretending. It's Canada, remembering how it all began. Toronto, speed, glass, crowds. Everything's in motion. But turn into an alley, and it's quiet. Morning brings a Chinese market full of steam and spice. Afternoon, coffee in a tiny Lebanese shop. Evening, jazz in a basement. No signs, no flyers, just music. Toronto doesn't try to impress, but if you pay attention, it opens up. Not quickly, but truly. Canada doesn't stay in your memory. It returns. Not in photos, not in souvenirs, but in you. You're sitting at home, drinking tea, and suddenly you hear leaves rustling outside. And you remember, not a picture, but a feeling. Walking by the lake, the scent of pine and quiet, the sense that nothing had to be understood, just experienced. Canada doesn't try to impress, it doesn't entertain, it doesn't explain, but if you're ready to be still, it speaks, softly, clearly, honestly. And what it says stays with you, quietly, forever. Now just enjoy Canada, with soft music and no words. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'm just getting started, and your support truly means a lot. Thanks for being here.